What's something that you consider a masterpiece? And you can take this question as sarcastically or genuinely as you like.
No, I'm thinking of so many masterpieces.
You're an artsy guy. You know a lot of good masterpieces.
I know a lot of good masterpieces. Me? No, Leonard Bernstein's Candide.
That's one. You get two more.
I get two more? Nice! They're all musical theater related. I don't like that.
Of course they are, Kyle. That's your area of expertise.
No, I got to broaden out. Let's see. There's got to be a classical music one. Like, God, I'm on the spot. There's an opera by Ravel. L'enfant et les sortilèges. The child and the spells or whatever.
Okay.
It's so good. It's so good.
I'm so happy that you're taking this like just with full genuine passion.
Of course.
I love this.
And then the third one is
stick the landing, Kyle.
The third one is
finish out your list the way you always finish out lists.
The third one is you know what? Actually, though, the video game Earthbound.
Oh, that is a masterpiece.
I'm so niche, but
yeah, that's a good answer.
Thank you.
What's another thing that's a masterpiece?
And the fourth one is a little podcast that we like to call
Welcome to Butter No Parsnips. Every week on Butter No Parsnips, your hosts Emily Moyers and Kyle Imperator take you on an adventure through the weird, wacky, wonderful, and sometimes even wicked world of one wayside word. Strange characters, delightful bits, and general joyousness abound. Join them as they test each other's etymological expertise.
Hey everybody, I'm Kyle Imperator.
And I'm Emily Moyers. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. I think the show was an MLB talk show about baseball.
Well, this is Butter No Parsnips. And
a BNP
talk show that I've got a word for.
Give me the word now.
Okay, all right. The word is magnoperate. Magnoperate. Magnoperate.
Magnoperate?
You got it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This cannot be a real word. I can't believe we're 5,000 episodes into this podcast?
That's how many we've done.
I'm still being stunned by words that exist.
You like a good flop of a vowel in the middle of the word. You know?
The gna.
Magnoperate.
Magnoperate, just right off the bat. You know the Pokemon Magnemite?
Sure.
This is not a good day for Magnemite if he has to have a Magnoperation.
But, he'll feel better after, once he heals.
Once the metal scar with welding instead of stitches. Okay, so real niche. Sorry, guys. It's starting off niche today. Magnoperate. All right, so just like right off the bat,
yeah,
I'm seeing operate, which means specifically, we use it to talk about surgeries, but it can just mean to work with something, right? To handle something.
Yeah.
Right.
It is related to operate, but it is not like a direct pull of that English word.
So it's not like operate with a prefix.
No, but linguistically linked.
So then my other thought is magna, I'm thinking Magna Carta. I'm thinking Magnum Opus. I'm thinking Magnificent Seven.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle, you've said three words that are also linguistically related to the front half. And that middle phrase that you said is very linguistically related.
Magnum Opus, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Magnopus.
Yeah, you're right there, Kyle. You're so close.
This should be Magnopusation. No, that sounds gross. Okay, so, wow. Can I just take a guess then? This is a verb, right?
It is a verb, and it is from Latin.
Okay.
But I think you were there already.
So is magnoperate just to create a masterpiece? Is that all it is?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
It's not all it is, but that is one of the definitions.
No, that's it. End it now.
Yes. So one of the definitions of this word is to work at a magnum opus. But there's another one if you want to try to guess for it. It's up to you.
Oh, is it like a broader definition or a more specific definition?
The other definition is not directly related to magnum opus, but it is linguistically linked to both magnum and opus.
So I'm thinking, like magnum is like great, like in size or in like grandeur.
Yeah, this you've like got the whole outline.
Opus. I'll
be honest, Kyle, you can guess the definition from what you've said already about magnum.
Is it just work?
That is what opus, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To just do something big?
Pretty close. Not exactly, but pretty close.
To work on a big scale? To work on a large scale?
Even closer, but still not quite.
What is it?
So, to go through the three big definitions that we're going to talk about today. Magnoperate can mean to make greater, either, grander, elevate, better. To work at a magnum opus, and to act in a grand manner.
I see.
So, yeah, you were hovering right around it with everything that you said.
This is such a good word.
It's a good word. It's a good word. And we got fun stuff. So, you covered a lot of the etymology right in the guessing. So, our English magnoperate is derived from the Latin magnopere or maniopere.
Oh.
Interesting side note there. Signor Imperatore might sound familiar to you, that the GN there makes a ñ sound. Listeners familiar with modern Italian will recognize that that is a facet of Italian. It is also a facet of what is called Italianate ecclesiastical Latin, which is how they pronounce Latin in the Catholic Church.
Is that going to be contextually important to the word today?
Nope. It's just two different ways of pronouncing it in Latin.
Well, I will say that if we're talking about magnum opuses, ecclesiastical Latin is important because when classical composers started writing music in Latin, it was church music. So they were using ecclesiastic Latin pronunciations for the music.
There you go. So the first musical magnum opuses were magnum opuses.
Magnum opuses.
Yes, but in more broader context of classical Latin, they would pronounce that GN the way we would, magnopere. And the Latin magnopere was not actually a verb, it was an adverb, meaning greatly, exceedingly, or more literally, to a great extent, or with great effort. This word is an example of a linguistic phenomenon called univerbation. Have you ever heard of that, Kyle?
We talked about that, didn't we? It's when like a phrase just becomes a word, right?
Yeah.
It gets kind of smashed together and it's like, there's a word now.
Yep. Absolutely. Univerbation, simply put, is when two or more words get smushed together. And it's a little bit muddy because like there's compound words where like whole words are put together, but they kind of maintain their individual meanings even in the compound. And there's portmanteaus, which like merge words and merge their meanings. But univerbations are like you take a recognized phrase and kind of just like pull it together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I feel like there's so many like ways that we could use univerbation to create some fun new words now that I'm thinking about it.
Yes. But like examples, like even really simple words like into, that was originally two separate words. And like grammatically, it kind of doesn't make sense like into, but when like we've just recognized that this phrase means something. So we just pulled it together into a word. Same with forever and elsewhere and a bunch of other words. So the word magnopere in Latin was a univerbation of magno and opere. Magno is a conjugation of the word magnus, meaning great or large, as well as grand or mighty, as you said earlier. English gets a bunch of words from magnus. A lot of our MAGN words are related, though not all of them. Kyle, you want to take some guesses? We can just buzz through them quick.
I said magnificent earlier.
Yep, that's one.
Magnate.
Yes, that's one.
I'm assuming magnet is not related,
It
right?
is not correct.
Okay,
you
yeah.
avoided the minesweeper box that had the trap on it. Yes, magnet, as well as the atomic elements magnesium and manganese, all come from the ancient Greek magnetis lithos, or stone from Magnesia, which is both a region of Greece and a city that Greek colonizers founded in what is now Turkey. And I guess it's where those elements come from.
It's eponymous.
It is eponymous. Yes.
That's so fun.
All three of those words are eponymous.
I don't think I can think of any others.
Magnify is related to magnus because it's making bigger.
Sure.
Magnitude, magnanimous, magnum, like PI.
I could think of another magnum, but yeah.
Yes,
PG podcast.
Magnolia is indirectly related because the flower is named after a botanist, Pierre Magnol, or Magnol, because he was French, and his name comes from Magnus.
That's so fun.
Yeah. And then really any MAGN names like Magnus or Charlemagne, any of the French names.
The Great Charles.
Yep, you got it. They're all related to Magnus.
Oh, wow. This is so much fun.
It's good. Let's have fun with the other half. Opere is a conjugation of the word opus, meaning work or labor or accomplishment. We get a fair few words from there as well. Any guesses, Kyle? Big one relevant to you specifically. What you working on? What you writing?
I'm writing my manifesto.
What are you composing, Kyle?
Oh, opera.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Opera.
Opera comes from opus, yes.
That makes sense.
Because it originally meant a work, and then it meant, I think, a musical work. And then I think it came through Italian to English.
Sure.
Operate, as you said earlier, comes from opus. Oeuvre, via French, because oeuvre in French means like a work. And from there, maneuver.
Handwork.
Literally,
Handiwork.
it's probably a calque of the Germanic handwork.
That's crazy. That's crazy because maneuver now has nothing to do with either of those things.
Absolutely, but it was like a Latin to French like calque of the Germanic handwork because it's maneuver.
Love it. Maneuver.
And if you go back a step further, opulent is also related. Both opus and opulens are Latin words derived from a Proto-Indo-European word meaning to work or to produce in abundance.
Oh, so that's fun because like opulent and magnificent or magnanimous, I guess, they're kind of similar.
So magno and opera were univerbed together in Latin to form magnopere, which again meant with great effort or to a great extent. In English, the verb suffix ate was appended onto there to form magnoperate, meaning to make something greater.
It's stunning to me that somebody would write this word and seriously.
Let's talk about who wrote it, Kyle. Perfect segue. The English word was coined by one Arthur Hopton in his 1610 book, Baculum Geodeticum Sive Viaticum, or The Geodetical Staff, which I assume you read in middle school.
I think I contracted that in middle school. Went around, you know? Geodetical? What the heck does that mean?
So we're going to get there. Arthur Hopton was a diplomat, but based on the contents of this book, I think he was also a mathematician. Okay. He's writing on a field called geodesy. That's what it's called now. But I guess at the time it was called geodetical
Scott Bakula.
Scott Bakula. And geodesy is a branch of mathematics that, among other things, attempts to calculate the exact size and shape of the Earth using math.
Okay, sure. I feels like I could see that being kind of niche nowadays.
Well, I think it was niche at the time because at the front of the book, there's a dedication to the first Earl of Salisbury, Robert Cecil, a man very high up in the English government at the time. And essentially, Hopton is encouraging the Earl to like throw his weight behind this field and Hopton's work and like give his support to it. In the quote I'm about to read, Hopton writes that supporting this unsung field, geodesy, will elevate the Earl's reputation for generations. And he compares the Earl to the Greek figure Maecenas, who's famed for being a patron of the arts. He writes, quote, "After ages may rightly admire what noble Maecenas it was that so unchained the aspiring wits of this understanding age to his only censure, which will not a little magnoperate the splendor of your well-known honor."
Wow. I mean, what a good time to break out this word. You know? Like, if you're going to need to create the word magnoperate, it should be for swelling the head of someone you want to back your work.
It's pretty top-notch schmoozing, I would say.
Yeah. Yes, it really is. It's like that and like gifts of wine and like a private Beyonce concert. Like this is...
Should we update our call to action for Patreon to include magnoperating the splendor of our listeners' well-known honor?
We absolutely should. We absolutely should. And honestly, the fact that they didn't just assume that we thought that of them before makes me upset, you know?
Absolutely. You should all know that this will elevate your reputation for the after ages.
It's true. There will be so many 1610 Latin dissertations written
in your honor.
Yeah, in your honor. In your honor. Because of this podcast.
Because you are on our Patreon. Yeah. Hopton's coinage, it seems, did not really catch on. As far as I can tell, magnoperate, as he used it, did not appear again for 300 years. But in 1915, the word was dug up and revived by a journalist whose name was not in his article
anonymously.
Well, none of the articles had names because it was 1915. But this was an article in the Lamar's Semi-Weekly Sentinel, which was a newspaper in Lamar's, Iowa, USA.
Wow. Middle America. Was not where I was expecting this to travel to.
From like deep Middle Ages Europe.
Yeah, academia.
Yeah. The article in question talks about a con man who came to a neighboring town posing as a filmmaker offering to make pictures about people in town. And there's a blurb where the journalist writes sort of in the voice of this con man, like giving his pitch about what he can offer the town with his wonderful moving picture machine. And he writes, quote, "This instrument's greatest achievement will be when it portrays to the world the gorgeous glory, the scintillating splendor, the cyclopean characteristics, which will not a little magnoperate the massiveness of your wonderful community."
I mean, honestly,
literally
I'm going to get swindled by anyone. If I'm going to get swindled by anyone, I want it to be someone using the word magnoperate.
Absolutely.
You know? And cyclopean. Yeah. You had me at one eye.
Yes, cyclopean, crazy word to just throw in. For those who don't know, it just means big. It has nothing to do with the one eye.
In reference to them being giants.
Yes, to Cyclops being giants. Yes, the word cyclopean in isolation can also just be used to mean like big or great.
That's good. That's fun.
Now, as we talked about at the top, there is another definition of magnoperate. But before we talk about that one, we need to go back a couple of steps. Because in addition to all of the English words that we get from Magnus and opus, we also get the borrowed Latin phrase magnum opus. As you might already know, magnum opus literally translated means great work. And interestingly, because Latin word order can be very flexible, the reversed phrase opus magnum has also been used and is equally correct in Latin grammar.
Opus magnum sounds like I'm taking poetic license to make something rhyme, you know?
Yes. I would love a poem that makes the rhyme by flipping magnum opus. I would love a poem that does both. Like at the beginning, it has magnum opus.
I think this is just the lyrics to the opening song in our magnum opus opera.
Okay, you're going to work that in?
I'm going to work that in. I'm going to have it written in the next 3 weeks.
Amazing. Kyle, I can't believe it's happening. We have another legitimate reason to bring up the thing we've brought up 1,000 times on this podcast already. Kyle, could you tell our listeners who first used the phrase magnum opus, I believe both in Latin and in English, to refer to their great work?
Are we talking about Jesus?
Nope. Nope, we're not. The thing that keeps coming up over and over, no matter how insane it is that it keeps coming up.
Are we talking about Hermeticism?
Yes!
No!
Those crazy, morally dicey alchemy wizards, the Hermeticists. In that case, the great work was the attempt to create the Philosopher's Stone. They called it the Magnum Opus.
The Magnum Opus.
As far as I can tell, that is the coinage of this phrase.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yep.
That's insane. Okay, here's why that's insane. And I want everybody at home to understand why this is insane.
Yeah, this is a good.
This was basically a cult writing in
problematic cult. We haven't touched on that enough. They did bad stuff.
And writing in like medieval England. It wasn't just England. They were writing. It was all over Europe.
Yes,
but also like specific values and like at odds with everybody, academics, regular people, and like how did their language make its way into the common language? And
how does it keep coming up at every turn for our podcast?
Emily, the only answer here is
alchemy's real.
Alchemy's real is, the Illuminati, and
that's it. Wow. We can't escape.
Ron Paul was right. If there's one thing everybody should know.
It's the one thing you should take away. That Butter No Parsnips believes and stands behind. But we can't escape it, Kyle, because of course that is not what magnum opus means today in common parlance. Kyle, what does it mean today? Magnum opus.
I mean, within music, it's used probably most often.
Yeah.
Especially classical music, to talk about like a composer's greatest composition. But I feel like it's also more generally used to like any like of a creator's greatest work.
Yeah, their masterpiece, their masterwork. And it is from this phrase, magnum opus, that the word magnoperate was coined anew in 1821 by George Gordon Byron, 6th Baron Byron, better known as Lord Byron.
Oh, the Lord Byron.
The
poet,
Lord Byron.
Huh?
Yes, British poet in the Romantic era. And boy, describing Lord Byron as romantic is an understatement. Man lived a scandalous life, not always in a fun way.
I did not know this about him.
Oh, yeah, we don't have time, but the half sister, maybe a choir boy, countless women.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Wild
Wildlife.
You're saying it like you're enticed by it. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
No, like do not mistake that Byron lived a wild life. But I have a quote here from a letter Byron wrote to his dear friend, Irish poet Thomas Moore, Moore. At the time this letter was written, Moore was in the midst of writing his own great work, a 10-volume poetry collection called Irish Melodies, of which Byron was a big fan. In this 1821 letter, Byron playfully complains about Moore being so busy composing and not having as much time for his friends. And he writes, quote, "Your dwarf of a letter came yesterday. That is right. Keep to your magnum opus. Magnoperate away."
It's so fun.
Which is, that's how you and I talk to each other.
It is literally how we talk to each other.
We're like, you're doing something else today? How dare you?
You should be spending time with me, even if it is to do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's how the best of friends magnoperate.
Absolutely. So in this usage, as we said earlier, magnoperate means to work at one's magnum opus. The phrase magnum opus here is smushed together, akin to the univerbation we saw earlier, albeit this case a little bit more mangled.
Yeah.
And again, that verb suffix ate is appended. It could be that Byron was aware of Hopton's magnoperate and just redefined it. I honestly think it's more likely that it just is a coincidence and he formed this word in isolation.
That's what it feels like.
It feels like he just got there by a different route.
Especially like with the playfulness of the letter. Like,
I think so.
That sounds exactly like something we would do.
Yeah. And let's also not beat around the bush. Byron was a good poet. So
great. Honestly, every time I dip my toe into reading something for the podcast, I'm like, wow, I love this.
Very
he wrote
celebrated.
Epic poetry, right? Like it was long poems.
I think so. He's like one of the big heroes of the Romantic poetry era.
Yeah.
So
it was him and Shell.
Yes.
Silverstein.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And like Hopton's magnoperate, Byron's saw a bit of use in the 20th century as well, later on. The OED has a quote from a literary supplement in the London Times from 1907. I couldn't track down the full article, so I don't know what the context is or the writer, but the quote is, authors are not always magnoperating, parentheses, to borrow a word that Byron fancied.
Listen, at least they're giving attribution, you know?
Yes. And also, I can personally attest they are making a true statement because I'm an author who is almost never magnoperating.
I think you're consciously avoiding magnoperating.
Yeah, I do. I've actually been writing a little bit occasionally. How's the opera coming, Kyle?
Oh, yeah, tell me. Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Wow, yeah. I mean, wow, what a mirror.
It's fair to say neither of us are doing much magnoperating these days.
That's true. That is true, yeah. If we want to get philosophical about it, you know, does magnoperating have to be the conscious effort to be writing what you believe to be your magnum opus?
That's true. You're always absorbing. You're always thinking.
Because eventually something will be your magnum opus, even if
true.
it's shitty. That's the best you got.
That's true. If you just peak low,
yeah,
then unfortunately this is my magnum opus. It never got better than my pile of laundry that's growing as high as it can just off frame.
I like how you're saying it's growing now just off frame like it's a living being. I think that is a magnum opus. You've homunculized your laundry.
It has a mouth.
Feed me, Emily.
Kyle, just one last thing before we round out this episode. Yet a third definition of this word, which appeared during the 20th century. Likely stemming from the original meaning, to make greater or grander, magnoperate has also been used to mean to act in a grand manner. This definition was coined and employed often by English theater critic James Agate, or Agate. Have you heard of this man, Kyle?
I have not.
I also had not, but from what I can tell, he is viewed by some as like the first theater critic.
Oh, wow. That's fun.
Or like among the first, certainly.
Sure.
James Agate started using this word around the 1920s, and it showed up sporadically throughout his writing, always in a way where I can't tell if it's snide or genuine.
But I think that's just 1920s British English.
And also, I think that's just theater critics.
Yeah. It's a toxic combination.
So I'll give you an example. The OED has a quote. Again, I couldn't find the full text, but I love the quote enough that I'm including it anyway. Agate refers to someone named Richard. I don't know if he means a character, like one of Shakespeare's Richard, or an actor. But he writes, quote, everything about Richard is magnificent. He may be said not to act, but to magnoperate.
Wow, you know, that's fun. That's fun because I feel like the best like theater review is one that tears it apart, and I like that there's maybe, you know, a history behind a precedent for that being the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, poor Richard.
Whoever he was.
Whoever he was.
Kyle, the masterpiece that is this episode is nearly complete. There's just one or two things that you can do to put the cherry on top. First being to use magnoperate in a sentence.
Oh, I really can. This is my general my general outlook on life is that everything I'm doing is me magnoperating.
Acting in a grand manner.
No. Building
working.
up my magnum opus. Every single little thing. I had yogurt for lunch today. That is going to affect the creation of my magnum opus. In some way,
right.
It may be unconscious, but that's how I
When you're an artist, everything is part of your art.
I want people to be like, why do we have these old socks in the Kyle Imperator archives? Because it mattered.
Because it mattered. All these receipts, they were important.
They were important.
Perfect, Kyle. Perfect. Absolutely. Do you want to play a game?
Yes, I was just going to ask if we could, if there's some sort of magnum opus game.
There is a game. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Kyle, the game today is called Bring It All Together. I wanted to give us a chance to look at a few more univerbations, because sometimes they're tricky to differentiate from like compound words because they are just words strung together. Other times they come from phrases with like whole words and syllables cut out. The exact boundaries of this phenomenon are like a little bit over my head. But I've got some examples for us to look at. I'm going to define, like literally define the parts of the word, and you're going to string them together and figure out what the word is.
Okie doke.
All right. First one, three parts here.
Mm-hmm.
The whole quantity or whole extent of something, the definite article, a path from one place to another. So if it helps, we can kind of go in stages. You can say what those three words are.
The first word is all.
Yep.
Definite article. Grammar is my weak suit, so that could be anything.
Definite is you're saying it's definitely it's I know which one it is, as opposed to the indefinite article. It could be anyone.
Okay, so all, and then the third one. What was the third one again?
The third one is a path from one place to another.
The path from one place to another is a road, is a direction.
Less specific. How you get from point A to point B.
Is a travel. Is a...
It's the method that you take. This is... it's really hard to hint at what this word is.
I mean, I feel like when words are just so generic, it's like, how do you describe
it's hard.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give up. Unfortunately.
That's fair. So I'll give you what the three parts are. It's all the way. And then that was shortened and pluralized to become
to always.
Always.
See, I get it. Okay. All right.
So always came from all the way.
That was just a fungo. Give me a couple more.
That was absolutely. Yeah. All right. Next one, you're going to get this one. You might not get this one. This one's also three. In spite of some fact, pronoun for a thing, and to exist.
Okay, pronoun for a thing is that it?
Yeah.
To exist is live?
Even simpler.
Be?
Yep.
It be. What was the first part?
In spite of something.
In spite of something.
If you said something, but we're going to introduce a counterpoint, you might start it with a transitional phrase.
Although.
Yep, that's it. So
although it be, there's a word
reverse.
that comes from although. You're telling me although it be was a phrase?
Yes, but although got shortened, and part of it is flipped.
The albeit.
Yeah.
Albeit, I always wondered why the word looked like a depression medication.
Yeah, it is like, although be it this way. That's what the phrase was, and then it got clipped.
Albeit.
Yeah.
Love that. Oh, really good.
All right, last one.
Yes.
This one might be easier. We'll see. This was a very conceptual game. Okay. A preposition often used with locations, the lowest cardinal number, and a suffix that nounifies verbs.
So the lowest cardinal number is 1.
You got it.
A suffix that nounifies verbs. I feel like there are so many of those.
Sure. I can give you an example if you were going to make retire a noun.
Okay, mint.
Yeah.
M-E-N-T. So one mint.
Yep.
And the first word is a preposition often used with locations. And a preposition is a word that I definitely know the definition of.
Prepositions are words that tell you where something is in relation to something else. So in, on, beside.
Okay. Are any of those the answer?
No.
Okay, good.
If you were saying something in relation to a location, if you were saying something in relation to a time, if you were saying something in relation to a state of being.
Close? Nope. Neither of those?
No, it is at.
At atonement?
Atonement came from the phrase at one-ment.
What? Yeah. That's insane!
Yep. At one-ment.
I am stunned.
Yeah.
And then we get atone from that?
Yep. Atonement came first.
Wow. This is... And we brought it back to the Catholic Church somehow.
Yes. Kyle, that's my minigame, but I also have one bonus question. And it has nothing to do with anything that we talked about today, but I think it's very important. Kyle, what is an exact anagram of Magnoperate?
What's an exact anagram? Is that
meaning like letter for letter? Nothing changed or added, nothing lost.
I have no idea. Is this something that I'll get?
It's a word you know, I promise.
Pomegranate.
Pomegranate is an exact anagram of Magnoperate, and that doesn't matter, but it matters so much.
It matters because pomegranates were, the food of the gods.
They were.
Ancient Greece, so they are, in a sense, magnum opia. Magnum
opi? I forget. It said what the plural was, and I can't remember.
Opodes. Emily, I learned so much in this episode. I love that even though this word has such a kind of quirky history and it's used kind of tongue-in-cheek, how it really relates to the grandeur of what we yearn for as human beings.
That's true. Yeah, which is why it's a little bit ostentatious, I think. Yeah. Kyle, thanks for playing. And everyone out there, thanks for listening.
And remember, if you're not watching, you can watch us on YouTube at Butter No Parsnips, and you can find Butter No Parsnips on other social media, on Facebook and Instagram at Butter No Parsnips, and on TikTok at Butter No Parsnips. And if you liked today's episode, consider giving us a 5-star rating or review wherever you heard us.
And if you really liked today's episode, consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/butternoparsnips. Donating $5 or more gets you exclusive access to Buttered Parsnips, our After Hours podcast, and it also will not a little magnoperate your splendor.
It shall greatly magnoperate your splendor. Thanks so much to all of you magnoperatees. You help us make what we make.
And with that, I've been Emily Moyers.
And I've been Kyle Imperator, and this has been Butter No Parsnips.
Butter No Parsnips is produced by Seth Glicksman, Kyle Imperator, and myself, Emily Moyers. The main and accompanying themes were composed by Kyle Imperator.